There are certain feelings that can't be captured with language. A look. A pause. A single breath that stays in the room long after it's gone. That night, before anything truly shifted, I sensed it humming faintly under my skin, like the air holding its breath before a storm. The evening wasn't meant to be anything special. My partner, Daniel, had invited 2 former university friends over for dinner. Their names were Luca and Jace. I had heard their stories for years, enough to feel like I'd already met them, though this would be the first time. I arranged the space carefully, making sure the table was set just so, the music soft, the lighting warm. It wasn't about impressing anyone, it was about reminding myself I was more than a caretaker of a home. I wanted to feel visible, not just someone filling a role. The doorbell rang, and my heartbeat fluttered once against my ribs. Daniel answered with his usual easy charm, ushering them in with hugs and laughter. I lingered a beat before stepping out of the hallway. Luca was the first to notice me. Tall, reserved, his presence carried a kind of steadiness that quieted the room rather than stirred it. His gaze met mine with a depth that felt more like recognition than introduction. "You must be Alara," he said, voice warm but even. It sounded as though he wasn't just acknowledging my name, but the person behind it. Jace, on the other hand, carried a brightness that filled every space. His smile had a hint of mischief but never cruelty, like he was forever on the edge of sharing a secret. When his eyes landed on me, it was like he was searching for something unspoken. Dinner moved along with familiar rhythms, old stories, bursts of laughter, Daniel's voice brighter than I'd seen in weeks. I smiled, poured wine, joined the conversations when needed, but beneath it all something quieter stirred. Luca's glances lingered a heartbeat longer than they should have. Jace's jokes landed near the fragile places I kept tucked away. Neither crossed a line, but I felt the shift in the air. When I stood to clear the dishes, I was suddenly aware of their eyes following me. Without thinking, my steps slowed. Jace rose to help, trailing me into the kitchen. "Here," he said, taking a plate from my hands. His fingers brushed mine, just a passing touch, but it reverberated through me like an echo. "You move so effortlessly," he added casually. I didn't reply. Words felt dangerous. Later, Daniel stepped outside to take a phone call. Luca sat down next to me, close enough for me to feel his quiet energy. "It's unusual," he said softly, to meet someone who carries stillness in their presence. "You do." It wasn't a compliment. It was a statement. Something inside me loosened, like a locked door I hadn't realized I'd been holding shut. When Daniel returned, the atmosphere shifted back to ordinary. But something in me had already changed. As they prepared to leave, Jace leaned close, his voice just above a whisper. "You've already made tonight unforgettable." I smiled politely, but my pulse betrayed me. The following days brought messages, simple, harmless on the surface. Jace asked for the playlist I'd used at dinner. Luca wanted to know the author of a book I'd mentioned. I answered. And then I kept answering. Luca felt like water, steady, grounding, patient. Jace was fire, alive, daring, impossible to ignore. I began to live between these 2 tides, one deep and still, the other hot and restless. One afternoon I glanced out the front window and saw Jace passing by. He noticed me too. Neither of us waved. Neither smiled. We just looked. And it unstitched something I'd worked hard to keep intact. A week later, Luca stopped by unexpectedly to drop off a book. Daniel was out. We sat in the same place at the kitchen table, but the air between us felt heavier. "You seem different," he said finally. "How so?" Like you've started listening to yourself. Again. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything that hadn't been said. Then Jace sent a message. Do you ever feel it too? I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. When Daniel suggested another dinner the following week, I said yes. But in my heart I knew, it wasn't just dinner anymore. It was a turning point. The moment they arrived, I could sense the difference. Luker's gaze lingered longer. Jace's usual playfulness was gone, replaced by something softer, almost hopeful. In the kitchen, Jace found me again, his voice low. I almost didn't come tonight. Why not? Because every time I'm near you, it's harder to pretend I don't. He trailed off, but his eyes finished the thought. Don't what? I whispered. He smiled, a fragile curve of the mouth. Don't feel more than I should. We rejoined the others, Daniel unaware, Luker's eyes too watchful. The evening ended, Daniel fell asleep on the couch, and the three of us sat in the quiet. Jace asked, what would you do if time stopped for just a moment and you could finally feel without fear? I had no answer. None of us did. But the silence was loud enough. Later, my phone lit up with a message from Luker. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. I typed back before I could stop myself. What do you hear in ours? His reply came quickly. Everything. Nothing had happened. And yet, everything had. Because once you've been truly seen, you can never return to being invisible.